Okay, today we're going to learn how to multiply complex numbers. If you're multiplying a binomial by a binomial, you're actually going to do what you're used to doing. You're going to distribute. The only new thing is that you have to replace every I squared with a -1. You want to combine like terms and express your answers in a plus bi form as much as you can. All right, with that being said, let's take a look at what we have here. Remember, again, we're multiplying. So 3i times 4i gives me 12i squared. But we know that I squared is a -1, so we really have 12 times a -1, which is a -12. All right, number 2, -5i times 3i is a -15i squared. But again, we know that I squared is a -1, so we have a -15 times a -1, which is a +15. All right, for number 3, we have a binomial times a binomial. So we're going to do double distributive property and get -20 plus 15i minus 16i plus 12i squared. We're going to neaten it up, so we have a -20 minus I plus 12 times a -1, which would be a -12, so we have a -20 minus 12, which is a -32 minus I as a final answer. Let's take a look at number 4. -3 times -2 is a +6 minus 15i minus 12i minus 30i squared. All right, so we have 6. Oh, this should be a positive because a -3 times a -5i is a +15. Good thing I caught that. So this will give me a positive 3i minus 30 times a -1, which gives me a positive 30. So now I have 36 plus 3i. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. 4i, the whole thing squared. So that's 4 minus I times 4 minus I minus 8i cubed. If anybody remembers what I cubed is, you're right. I cubed is a -I. So you want to simplify your i's as much as you can. So now I got to do double distributive property on the left and get 16 minus 4i plus I squared. And that'll give me a positive 8i, because a -8 times a -I is a positive 8i. Combined like terms, 16 minus 8i plus a -1, because I squared is -1, plus 8i. The 8i's cancel, so I have 16 plus a -1 gives me a positive 15 as my final answer. Okay, number 6. Multiply 6 minus 4i by its conjugate. All right, 6 minus 4i times its conjugate is 6 plus 4i, which means I have dots there, which means the two terms in the middle should cancel out. So I have 36 plus 24i minus 24i minus 16i squared. The 24i's cancel each other out. I have 36. I squared is a -1, so it's minus 16 times a -1. So that becomes a positive 16. So 36 plus 16 gives me 52. All right, let's take a look at some other problems on the next page. Number 7 doesn't look like I have to do double distributive property, but it looks like I have distributive property to do. So I'm going to bring down the 5 minus I. Distribute through the -2 and get a -2 plus 6i. Combine like terms, 5 minus 2 is 3, and a -I plus 6i gives me a positive 5i. That one really wasn't too bad. All it basically was distributive property and combine like terms. All right, let's take a look at number 8. Number 8 has a lot going on in the parentheses, but then everything is being squared, so we have to neaten up inside the parentheses first. So I have 5 minus I, distribute through that -2 and get a -2 plus 6i. The whole thing squared. Let's see what else I can do. 5 minus 2 is 3. -I plus 6i is plus 5i. The whole thing squared. So now I have 3 plus 5i times 3 plus 5i, which will give me double distributive property 9 plus 15i plus 15i plus 25i squared. Okay, I get 9 plus 30i plus 25 times a negative 1, which gives me a negative 25, and 9 minus 25 gives me a negative 16 plus 30i. So there is the final answer to number 8. We're going to skip 9 and 10 for today, and we'll go back to those tomorrow in class. So let's go down to number 11 now. This will be our last problem for this video. Evaluate the following equation when x is represented by 3/2 minus I over 2. Okay, take a look at that value of x. That value x, both of them are fractions, and they have a common denominator. So I'm going to rewrite it to be x equals, 3 minus I all over 2. I just think plugging in a single fraction like that would be a lot easier. So let's do that. So I'm going to have 4 times 3 minus I over 2, the whole thing squared, minus 12 times 3 minus I over 2. Okay, so this is going to be 4 times 3 minus I over 2 times 3 minus I over 2 minus, I can reduce the 6 and the 12 and the 2 here and get a 6. That 6 was coming out of my mouth before I explained to you what to do, because really this is 12 over 1, so I can cross reduce and end up with a minus 6 times 3, so it's a minus 18, and a minus 6 times a negative 1 is a positive 6i. All right, I still have to do multiplying on the left, so I have 4 times, I have to do double distributive property on the top and get 9. Minus 3i will give me a minus 6i plus I squared all over 4 minus 18 plus 6i. I can reduce the 4's and get 9 minus 6i. I squared is a negative 1 minus 18 plus 6i. The 6i's will cancel. Let's see, I get 9 plus a negative 1 gives me 8. 8 minus 18 gives me an answer of a negative 10. If there's something with this problem that you don't understand, you might want to replay the video and take a look at it one more time. If you still have any questions, bring them to class with you tomorrow.